Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek Deep Thoughts, Thin Coats with me, Phil, the Glacial Geek. So today, I'm going to be continuing to work on my my Death Watch stuff that I've been working on previously. I've got the primers all good to go, and what I'm going to be doing now is doing the dry brushing method that I use to make black armor, which a lot of people have asked about. So here's some information about it. Essentially what I'm going to do is, now that they're all primed black, I'm going to do a liberal dry brush of standard Mechanicum standard gray, and I'm going to do a liberal dry brush of Fenrisian gray, and then I will do, if I have the time and can find it anywhere, I'm just going to do a layer of Nuln Oil. I doubt I'm going to get to that point, but that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm going to start with the Mechanicum standard gray, and as you can see, I'm trying a new method. We'll see if this works. I might be just showing this to a camera that never ends up getting seen if it doesn't work out, but I'm trying a different method so people can actually see what I'm working on. So that's what I'm going to be doing hobby-wise. As far as our discussion that we're going to have today, I'm going to be talking to you about what you can do between now and the drop of 8th edition, which is coming out supposedly in June. Early June from what I've heard, early to mid-June. So that kind of makes sense to me, that they had the drop that they talked about, and they said that it's going to be coming out sometime this year, and that they're going to do an article every single day until it comes out, which is a lot of articles if you're going to wait until the very end of the year. So I imagine, you know, a month of articles giving information as to what's coming in this next edition is probably a good basis upon which to work it on. But yeah, so as you can see here, I'm just going to give a really nice dry brush of this. So yeah, so what can we do? Because we're stuck in a limbo now where we don't know what units are really going to do in the new edition. We're getting some rules information as to what the different phases are going to do. We've got some information about what the fight phase is going to do. We've got information about the shooting phase, psychic phase, but we don't really know how all of it's coming together. And it's certainly not time to declare that the sky is falling and my army is no longer useful. But at the same time, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen in the new edition. So what can we do if we don't want to just sit there twiddling our thumbs until mid-June and we want to actually do something? So here comes my advice from Phil here to you about what it is that we can do. The first thing I would suggest is just continue what you're doing. Honestly, continue what you're doing hobby-wise. Play the game in 7th edition. You know, I get that you may want to be sitting there, you're excited to play 8th edition, see what's going to happen. But 7th edition is still a game that fully works, and you can still play. I'm still putting out battle reports, obviously, so you can see those that have been coming out. And I don't think it takes anything away from what we have coming for us, the expectations, if we take some time to continue playing the game that we love. Because we play it because we want to play it. You know, I imagine that there's some anxiety for people who are running tournaments, trying to figure out when it comes out so they can figure out what kind of rule set they're going to run. And I can imagine if you're trying to come up with a you know, a list for a tournament that's coming up in, say, July, that you want to know what kind of system you're going to be using. But at the same time, you know, there's nothing to stop us from playing the way it is now. So I would continue doing that. I would continue doing, if you have a list of things that you've been wanting to get to painting-wise, maybe instead of playing, you just do some hobbying. So you build some models, build some models, paint some models, so that when 8th edition finally drops, you've got a whole army that you can then use however you want. The more models you have, the better able you're going to be to adapt to the changes, so that you can then build a list with your army of choice that'll work well on the table with the new rules. So that's the first thing. Just keep going the way you're going now. Building things and building things, painting things, playing the game exactly the way it is. I don't think right now is necessarily the time to start trying to figure out what the next meta is going to be, because until we get a really full grasp of how everything interacts, it's going to be hard to really get a good idea of how all the rules are going to interact to the point that you can really start building lists. So if you're looking for a competitive meta, this is not the time to start thinking about that. Maybe it's time to kind of put the net listing aside for a bit and just kind of figure out what it is that you want to do personally, as opposed to what's going to work, you know, the super bestest in this next edition. The next option you have is that you can go out and start a new army. You know, I know it sounds a little counterintuitive for what I just said now, that you don't want to be doing things that if you don't know how all the rules are going to interact. But I honestly feel like the rules are going to, the rules are set up the way they've been coming out, and the fact that all of the armies are coming out at the same time and having all of their rules and point values reset at the same time, that we're going to end up with a much more balanced, even playing field with all the different armies. And right now would be the perfect time to start an army that has always interested you, but you've been afraid of how it would perform on the battlefield. You know, there's a lot of people out there who are like, oh, I love the aesthetic of the orcs. I feel like the modeling opportunities that you have with all of their, you know, crazy orkiness would be great, but they just don't perform the way I'd want them to on the battlefield, and I don't know if I want to invest in that. Well, I think with 8th edition, personally, I feel like with 8th edition that we're going to end up with a far more even playing field. So there'll still probably be stronger armies than others, but I don't think the difference is going to be quite as pronounced as you see nowadays with 7th edition, the way things built up, because you don't have the opportunity for codex creep, so that the older codexes, like the ones for the orcs or for the Tyranids, that is you know, they're going to be catching up to what everything else is, because everything is getting a new rule set, a revamp of the rule set at the same exact time. So points have been worked out together with them all understanding the way they want them to be, without having to worry about the fact that as newer codexes have come out, there's been a creep in power. So now would be a perfect opportunity to get into that army and be able to play them on the field the way you wanted them to be played on the field, because it's going to come out and you'll have the opportunity to compete. It's also a downtime right now, so there's no one out there telling you what you should be buying. You can just buy whatever you want to buy, you know? So say there was a model that really had been interesting you, go get it. Why not? Go out and buy it, build it, paint it. You know, this is a perfect opportunity, so when 8th edition drops, you've got it ready to go onto the table to fight against everyone else's armies that they're trying to figure out. And you've got a little bit of a head start because you have an opportunity to play it. And another perfect way to go about that, and which kind of transitions into my next suggestion, is try it out in some of the other games that they have out there. So Kill Team or Shadow Wars. Those are really fun systems that don't require a lot of models to play them. They require the same models that you would play in 40K, but there's fewer of them that you need to really have a full game. So this gives you the opportunity to pick up, you know, a get starting set, or maybe just you know, an infantry troop pack, and build and model and paint some things to get on a battlefield that isn't going to change when 8th edition comes about, and just be able to play them, you know? Because Kill Team is still going to probably work with the 7th edition rules, I would imagine. I imagine it's going to be easy to port in the 8th edition rules. I might try some of that when it finally drops. But you can still play it with the 7th edition rules. You don't have to do anything. You can just keep playing them. And the game system is set up so that you can do that the way they are now, so you can understand how they work. And if they're not super competitive, who cares? It was a small investment in this squad that you've wanted to paint, that you've wanted to build, that you've wanted to collect. So there's no real hard, you know, mandatory investment that you have in there. You don't have 2,000 points of them at the end of it, sitting there going, well, what am I doing with this? You've got a smaller force that you've played some games waiting for 8th edition to drop out, and if it doesn't work out, they're cool models that can sit on your shelf. Or maybe it'll inspire you to start a new army and collect something new in the new edition to, you know, get a refresh on your modeling and your hobby as much as the game itself. Because I think this is a fun time to really start fresh and start new, because everything's starting new. So everyone's going to be trying to figure out the new rules. Everyone's going to try to figure out how everything interacts. And it's a perfect opportunity to learn a new army, because no one's going to know that army better than you at all anyway, because the weapons are changing, the rules for how the armies interact are changing, how the different phases go, the different ways that you roll for combat are changing. So everyone's going to be on an equal footing when 8th edition finally drops. So you're not going to have to walk in there and have people scoff at your lack of knowledge of how your army works, because no one's going to know how their army works. And everyone's going to be in this learning phase, trying to figure out how the rules work and how the new system works. So it's a perfect opportunity to try a new army, because you're not going to have that fear of having people look down on you for not knowing exactly what you're doing. You know, and I know that feeling. I've had that when I first started, when I would bring in my my Gene Stealer cult, and I would bring out my Death Watch, and I'd apologize and be like, oh, I'm going to be looking at my codex a lot, trying to figure out how all these different things work. Well, in the new system, everyone's going to be looking at the new books that are going to be coming out, because they're going to be trying to figure out how their army works. So give it a shot. And then if you start now before it actually drops, when 8th edition finally comes out, you're going to have a force ready to go. And it's going to be beautifully painted, because you've had all the time, you've had like a month and a half to do it, or a month to paint it. And you'll be ready to go. And to start with a small force, because at the beginning, when these new rules come out, no one's going to be wanting to start, you know, the first game they play, they're not going to want to start with an apocalypse game and just completely drive themselves insane trying to figure out how everything works and interacts at the same time. You know, you're probably going to have a bunch of smaller games that people are going to want to play, so they can get a grasp on how the rules work and how the rules interact with each other. So it's a perfect opportunity to start a new army. Also, like I said, I think with the new leveler playing field that you're going to have, you're not going to have to worry about going into the shop or the club with your new army and just be wiped off the table at first. Or if you are, it gives you the opportunity to adapt, because you've just started a new army, so you don't have a lot of investment in it, because I guess you could go out and spend a gajillion dollars on new models. I wouldn't suggest that. I would recommend going out, buying a couple kits maybe. You know, get enough for a starter. Looking at the way they showed with the Force org tables, it looks like it's going to be pretty much basically the way they do CADs. And I think you're going to have similar Force org tables that, you know, they said, what is it, 14 they said they're going to have on these in the new system. And what this will allow you to do is just buy the basic stuff. So make sure you get yourself an HQ, make sure you get yourself a troop choice or two, and you should be good to go when 8th edition drops with whatever Force org table they're going to have. Your basic combined arms attachment, I don't think is going to change. That's been pretty standard. I think it's going to remain standard for into 8th edition. There's just going to be other options that you can run, which is kind of cool, in my opinion. So, yeah, I would suggest, I would say that's a pretty good way to go about it. Kind of going back to the other games that you could try Shadow Wars, you know? Shadow Wars allows you to collect a small force and customize the force and play campaigns and play different games that you want to do. And that is definitely not going to change, since it's a completely different system in and of itself. It's basically 2nd edition rule set. There's some changes that they have, but it's basically 2nd edition with Necromunda and whatnot. So it's a basic system, and I think it's not going to change. It's going to be exactly the same when 8th edition drops. There's not going to be they're not going to have a new system for Shadow Wars, so you can go out and learn that game. It's a lot of fun, and it also allows you to really work with a lot of models that you wouldn't normally, say, want to collect an entire army of. You know, if you don't want to go out and collect an entire, say, an entire army of Skitarii. Say you just want to have a few because you think the models look cool, you think it might be interesting to have a few of those, you can do that. And you can have a Skitarii force in Shadow Wars, and you only have to get, basically, I think it's like a troop choice box, you know? Go out and buy a box of them, and you're usually good to go. You know, you might need to buy some more if you want to get some of the specialists and whatnot, but basically all you need is that, and I think you're good, you know, you're basically just good to go. And that's not going to change, like I said, when 8th edition drops. You're not going to have to buy any more if you don't want to, and you've got a force that you can, if someone says, do you want to play some, you've got it. You've got a team. You've got a squad ready to go, and you can play them. And who knows, they might turn out to be something that you love. And that might inspire you to start a new army once 8th edition drops, when you see how the rules work. Because who knows, maybe Skitarii will be the new, you know, power army in the next edition. We don't know until all of the rules come out. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But there's no reason to just kind of sit back and do nothing, because we do this for fun. We do this because it's relaxing. We do this because it's an outlet for us. And if we're just going to be sitting here for a month just twiddling our thumbs, were going to go insane. You know, I don't know what I would do with myself if I wasn't playing games or modeling or doing something at least during this time, you know? I know I've got a channel that I got to keep up with it. But even if I wasn't doing the channel, I definitely would be out doing something because I do this because it's fun. I do this because I want to. Yeah, you know, maybe I can't plan what my force is going to look like for LVO, but that's not what you should always be doing. You know, not every game necessarily has to be a test for the next giant GT that's going to come out. You know, maybe just give it some time, have some fun with it, and enjoy yourself. You know, this is an opportunity where there's no real pressure on you for the next month because you don't know what the meta is going to be. You don't know what the competition is going to be. You don't know what you're going to face. So there's no pressure. You can do whatever you want. Go out there and have fun. Try some new armies. Try some new units. You know, maybe try a few games of 7th edition that you never tried before because you were busy just building. You know, you were building competitive lists. You know, now's an opportunity to go out there and try to just have some fun with some lists that aren't necessarily competitive because there's no need to worry about competitive because you don't know what the competitive scene is going to be like in a month, let alone in 2 months' time or 3 months' time, whenever the next GT that you're going to go to is. So this gives you an opportunity to just go out there and have some fun with your friends who you would normally just test, you know, tournament lists with because nobody has any tournament lists getting ready right now because no one knows what the tournament's going to be like. No one knows what the scene's going to be like. So this gives you the opportunity to go out there and just have fun because there's no pressure. There's zero pressure right now out there in the gaming world because no one knows what's coming. I guess some people probably know what's coming, but you don't. Or maybe if you do, you can do your own thing, but you don't need my advice at that point. If you're looking to me for a bit of advice, then you probably don't know what the rules are going to be, and you're sitting there waiting just like I am until the next edition comes out so you can figure out what you're going to do next. You know, and I think that it's going to be interesting when everything drops. There's going to be a lot of confusion. There's going to be a lot of, you know, probably hurt feelings that people aren't as happy with how rules went or points went. But at the same time, just sitting back now and not doing anything is going to leave you in a situation where you're just going to be upset. You know, it's going to leave you pretty annoyed that if you're just sitting there waiting for someone else to give you information. So, you know, you have to do that anyway, but it doesn't mean you have to sit there doing nothing. You can go out and learn and play some other stuff, play some of the other specialty games, or just go out there and play, you know, play some 7th edition or just model. You know, maybe it's just hobby time for you. You know, maybe you don't go out there, you don't worry about playing, you know, because you're just fed up with 7th edition, you're excited and you just can't wait for 8th edition to drop and you don't want to see it go by, you know? Maybe you just go out and you just do hobbying, build the army, because if you have like a 5,000 point army right now, let's be honest, you're going to be playing that same army regardless of what happens with the rules really in the end. So you're going to go out there and you're going to be playing when 8th edition drops, so why not just spend some time hobbying and modeling up some new models to go with your army. So maybe you had a really shooty Blood Angels army, you know what I mean? And now you've decided, well, maybe these new rules dropping, maybe this is a new chance to try a different direction. Maybe I'm going to go with a less shooty army. Maybe I can try some Assault Terminators. Maybe I can try some, you know, I don't know, something else. Maybe some Vanguard vets in there. Throw them in there and just try, you know, Death Company guys, you know, just get some close combat in there. And now this gives you an opportunity and an excuse to go out and buy some of those models and build them up and play them. Because you're going to be doing Blood Angels, may as well have something new when the new edition comes out that you get to just enjoy and have fun with when you go out there. You know, because that's what it comes down to, is that right now, nobody really knows what's going to happen. And the best option right now is to go out and just do whatever is going to make you feel better. So if it's just hobbying, go out and hobby. If it's just playing some games, maybe it's time to have a few friends over and just have like one last 7th edition hurrah. You know, maybe have like a big 2-day fun tournament with your friends. That everyone just brings the craziest list that they can think of, and you play them, and you just, you know, go out there. Maybe you have like the world's brokenest list tournament where everyone tries to bring the craziest broken list that they can think of, and then they can play them one last time before all those rules go away and everything changes yet again. So I think that would be fun, just going out there and doing that. I did a team tournament this last weekend with a friend, and we got our butts kicked playing some of our lists, and things are changing. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to be in another 7th edition tournament come in May states up here. He locked the TO has locked it down that it's going to be 7th edition that we're going to be using for those, and that's fine. You know, so I've still got some things I can prep for. But honestly, at this point, my brain's moving on to 8th edition, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, what I want to do. So I'm kind of in a period now where I'm trying to build up what I have for my Death Watch and my Gene Stealer cult, because I don't want to really expand my Dark Angels until I can figure out what it is, because I expanded my Death Watch, my Death Wing at the very end of 6th edition, and then I don't get much use out of my Terminators, except for a few battle reports where you see them every once in a while. So I kind of don't want to expand them anymore. I'm happy with what I've got for that coming in the next edition. So I'm going to build the armies that are smaller for me. So building up my Death Watch, building up my Gene Stealer cult, and just, you know, seeing what else I can do, and just having fun with the model aspect of it. You know, going out there and, like, as you can see now, painting up some Vanguard vets so I can try to run some new stuff, because I imagine things are going to be a bit different in 8th edition. I don't think we're going to have the same formations and everything, so I'm not really too concerned with trying to fill out the, you know, for these guys especially, the kill teams with specific units. I'm just trying to get a little variety of stuff that I can run, so that when I'm building up a force, when the new edition drops, I'm good to go, and I've got a few different options. I can try out some different things, so I can try out the new rules with a new army, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to being able to do that. So yeah, I think this is a good time to catch up on things that you've got that got put on the back burner as you kind of came together, because I don't know about you, but, you know, when I go to tournament scene, I've kind of had the same list that I've been running for, you know, the last couple months, and I've been happy with it. There's no real need for me to try something new, because it's effective. You know, it was really effective for me. I was running the Skyhammer with a Ravenwing Strike Force and a few different, you know, tweaks and whatnots, but I haven't had the need to really go out there and build much more, or try to think of anything else, because that worked for me, and that's kind of what it's done for me. So I think with the new edition coming out, who knows if it's going to work well for me? Who knows what's going to happen on the next set of when the rules finally come out? Are they going to be, you know, am I going to be left in a situation where that list is not going to be even usable? You know, because who knows? I feel like they're, you know, with 14 different force organizations that they've talked about in the new system, I imagine there's going to be very few lists that you can't build, but whether or not they're going to be as effective as they were is, you know, entirely dependent upon, you know, what happens. And I think a lot of those special rules probably won't be coming out right away. So my list is probably going to change drastically when 8th edition finally drops. I think it's going to be interesting to see how command points affect things, because we haven't gotten a lot of word on what those are going to do, which understandably everything's kind of coming out in a trickle, which I think is kind of interesting. I think it's kind of fun. That's another thing you could do in this time, is start reading up on the rules leaks that they've been having, not leaks, but the rules drops that they've been having. So they've gone over, you know, a bunch of the different phases so far, and not in super detail, but at least so you can get an idea of what to expect, of what's going to come, so that when 8th edition finally does come out, you won't be completely lost. You know, you'll have at least a basic idea of what to expect. You'll have a basic idea of what to do, because it sounds like if you've played 7th edition, you're going to have an idea of what's going to happen. They've changed a lot of the different stuff. They've changed a lot of the mechanics. They've changed a lot of the stats and whatnot, but the general sense of the game is still going to be similar. And I think it's going to look like a familiar game when we pick it up. When it finally gets released and we finally have all the rules, it'll look familiar. It'll just be very different, you know? And I've had a lot of people say that a lot of the new rules that they've been talking about are already released in Age of Sigmar. So there's an option. Maybe if you're not ready, if you really want to get a foot up on knowing how the rules operate, maybe go and play a game of Age of Sigmar. If you don't play it yourself already and you don't know the rules, maybe find a friend who has, you know, the starter set, and is willing to kind of lead you through some basic games of Age of Sigmar, so you can get an idea of how the mechanics already play out. Because a lot of them, from friends of mine who are both into 40k and Age of Sigmar, they've said that a lot of these rules are coming, you know, off the pages of Age of Sigmar, which is kind of cool. And I think it's kind of interesting. So you've got an opportunity now to go and learn how to play Age of Sigmar. You don't have to collect an army. And I'm not saying, you know, go out and buy an army, but you can get a friend who has multiple armies, you know, because I don't know about you, but I could do that for 40k now with a friend. So I'm sure there are people out there who have multiple Age of Sigmar armies. go out and learn the rules from them, learn the system, or borrow the rule book and just kind of read over the rule book and get an idea of what's to come. And I think it's going to be, you know, I wouldn't put too much in that because there are going to be changes. There already have been some changes, so it's not going to be just exactly Age of Sigmar. I think there are going to be very distinct differences that I think are going to be interesting to see how those pan out and how they work out. But it's an opportunity for us to kind of take a breath from the you know, the hard-nosed way of that we kind of take a lot of this game and step back and figure out what it is that we want to do. You know, figure out if we want to try a different army. Figure out if we want to try a different type of list. You know what I mean? Maybe going into 8th edition, I'm going to make Terminators great again. You know, maybe I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe I'm going to give it an opportunity to bring them back out, and I start thinking about how I want to do that. You know, I can't think about it exactly, but I can start thinking about the things that I want to do. Maybe dust them off and give them a little fresh coat of paint so that when it finally drops, I can give it a shot. Bring it out there. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be an opportunity for us to change a bit, give us an opportunity to try out some new and interesting things. And this right now, we have the opportunity to prepare for what's going to come, but in more of the hobby sense. So we can start working on building and painting anything that we really want. You know, I really think this is a perfect opportunity to try a new army because there's no competitive pressures on the army. Nobody knows what's going to be good. No one knows what's going to be bad. I've had everywhere I've looked, I've seen people say, well, you know, game over, and now it's just going to be assault Terminators everywhere. I've seen other people say, well, game over, it's just going to be mass small arms fire everywhere because that everything can wound everything, so that's just what you're going to do. I've had other people say, like, now's the game of giant creatures, that's just what it is. And I've heard literally every different type of unit. I've heard every single type of strategy purported as the next new thing for when 8th comes out, which tends to suggest to me that nobody knows. And if nobody knows, then there's opportunity to make whatever it is that you want to do next work. And, you know, and that's a good way to keep about the hobby in general, is just do what makes you happy. You know what I mean? And I know some people are happy by just having the new hotness, which is fine. They can do that. But right now there's no opportunity because we don't know what the new hotness is, and we won't know for another month. So even those people are kind of left in a position where they've got no opportunity to get the new hotness. They have to kind of just go with what feels right, what feels cool, you know? So maybe if you've been running a lot of shooty army, you kind of work on developing a more assaulty army, because that might be interesting and fun to give a shot. You know? I don't know. These are just ideas that I feel like I've been kind of banging around in my own head, that I've kind of been thinking about what it is that I want to do. I've been banging around ideas of what it is I think you know, I can do in this time period, because I can't just sit back and do nothing. I'd go crazy, you know? I have to do something with this hobby. And I think that the pressure is gone from the game right now, because there's nothing to live up to. No one knows what's coming next. No one knows what's going to be the next new, like I said, the next new hotness. No one knows what's going to be super OP and powerful in the next edition, because the rules aren't out yet. And no one knows how they're all going to operate. You know, a lot of people have started to do speculation, but I've literally heard from very reputable people, you know, people who have a keen sense of what's competitive now, say completely opposite things, you know? And if they're going to be saying completely opposite things, then I think you have an opportunity in this new system that maybe everything's going to be equally as effective. It just comes down to how you play it, which is fun. That's what I think a game should be. You know, it should be that I bring my army however I want to bring my army, you bring your army however you want to bring your army, and then we sit across each other from a table, and then we fight them against each other. And whatever the dice in my generalship decides, whatever your generalship decides, will determine the winner of the game. And I think that's going to be fun. And I'm excited for the fact that that's what's coming our way. And, you know, I'm excited to see that happen. And I think that right now is a great opportunity with very little pressure to just go out there and enjoy ourselves and think about what it is and kind of take us back to the beginning of the hobby. What started you down this path. You know, I don't think there are many people that got into this hobby to just be uber competitive and just have the new hotness. You know, I think that's an offshoot of what happens when you have a competitive system, is that people want to have the next new thing, the next big thing, because they want to win, because that's part of what it is. But no one knows what that's going to be. You know, everyone kind of gets into the system because it looks cool, because it's fun, because there's something about it that just like piques our interest. So now is an opportunity to get back to that, get back to basics of this, and just do what seems fun, do what seems cool to us, without any pressure of what is better, because no one knows what's better. We only know what piques our interest. You know, so are you interested in a whole bunch of brutish aliens? Maybe you pick up an orc starter kit, so that at the worst, even if it comes out and there's nothing that orcs can do, which I highly doubt is actually going to happen, you've got an orc starter kit and that's it. So you can play them in some kill team games and you don't have to worry about any pressure about collecting an army. Or maybe they do end up becoming the new hotness and you want to collect them anyway, you know, and then you've got an early start on it, you're good to go. I think that you need to follow your heart. And this, maybe that's the biggest thing right now, is that this is an opportunity for all of us as gamers, as war gamers, as, you know, players of this system, to step back and take a breath and kind of evaluate where we sit in the whole scheme of this hobby. You know, why are we here? Why are we still playing? Why are we still collecting? Why are we still building? Why are we still painting? I think this is an opportunity for all of us to kind of reevaluate what it is that drives us to do this. What drives us to spend so much money, so much time, so much effort, so much brain power, so much friendship on this game. What is it that drives us to do this? You know, do we do it because it's an opportunity for artistic expression? Do we do it because it's an opportunity for fellowship, for, you know, getting together with friends and meeting new people? Is it an opportunity to collect a cool thing? You know, maybe it's just the object-based thing that you like having these objects. But this is an opportunity to step back with zero pressure of what you should do, and you can figure out what it is that you want to do without any pressure, because there is no pressure. There's no one that can tell you what you need to be doing in this game right now. They can only tell you what you can be doing. And I think with the fact that no one knows what's coming up, or I guess there are some people who do know, but most of us don't know what's coming up. There's no way to tell you what it is that you, quote unquote, should be doing. All they can tell you is what it is that you can do. And I think it's an opportunity for us to take a breath, step back, reevaluate why we're here, reevaluate how we got here, and figure out what we want to do with this next step. You know, while we wait for the rule system to come out. And then we're all going to be back on that same footing. Everyone's going to have to learn the rules again. Everyone's going to have to learn the new tactics. Everyone's going to have to learn the new way of building lists. And if you spent this time, this month and a half between when they announced it and now when they're going to release it in June, you're going to be in a position that once it finally drops, once you see what these rules are going to be, you can finally see how the system's going to play out. You're going to have a better understanding of who you are as a player. You're going to have a better understanding of who you are as a hobbyist. And you're going to be able to have a better understanding of why it is that you do this and how to proceed with 8th edition. You know, maybe you come to the understanding after sitting there and thinking about it that you don't really know why you do this anymore. You know, maybe it doesn't bring you the joy anymore. In which case, you know, maybe it's an opportunity to explore other things. You know, maybe it's an opportunity to start doing more board gaming. Maybe it's an opportunity to give Magic a shot. You know what I mean? I don't want to shoo you away from this hobby. I love this hobby, and I think there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it than just going out and wrecking face at tournaments. But I think that if it's not bringing you enjoyment, then this is an opportunity to figure that out. You know, because you can't just get caught up in following along with what you've done, because we can't. Everything's kind of been paused a little bit at this point, and this gives you an opportunity to sit back, reevaluate what it is that you do, why you do it, and, you know, maybe you come to the conclusion that tournament play isn't for you because that was just causing you more stress. And this gives you an opportunity to step back and just have fun with it. You know, just get together with some friends and play a game, which is probably how all of us really started this game, but started this hobby. So I think this is a time for self-reflection. I think this is a time for reevaluation. I think it's a time for us to to really step back and start to figure out what it is that we do and why we do it, and not be burdened with just keeping up with whatever we've been doing. And I think that if you do it properly, if you take the step back, if you take the opportunity to try to just, you know, take a breath and figure out where you stand in this hobby for yourself personally, once 8th edition finally drops, you'll be better able to just hit the ground running and figure out what it is that you want to do. So maybe you have this reevaluation, you look around and you're like, well, I've been a Garage Hammer guy throughout all of these editions, but you know what? Those tournament scenes seem really cool. I feel like it would be fun to be able to throw myself against unknown opponents, you know, on the weekend and see who can do a better job of 40K'ing all over each other's face. I think it gives you an opportunity to maybe it means that you want to turn around and you do want to be more competitive. Maybe you do want to figure out what the new meta is in 8th edition. And if you kind of went into the game, with that understanding, if you approached 8th edition with that understanding when it finally drops, you'll be better able to go forth and actually have a better time at figuring out the meta and figuring out what it is that you want to do with your chosen army to be competitive. But if you don't take the opportunity now presented to step back and think about it, you're not going to be approaching it like that. And you're not going to be hitting 8th edition hard once it finally actually drops, because you never thought about it. You never really wondered about it. So maybe you take a step back, think about it. You know, if you're a really heavy Garage Hammer guy and you just play with the same 2 friends on the weekends, there's nothing to stop you to keep doing that. But maybe you sit back and you look at things and you're like, you know what? Maybe we should try once a month going to a local tournament at the local gaming store and give that a shot. Maybe 8th edition is an opportunity to try that, because the bloat's going to be gone, all of the codex creep's going to be gone. You're going to have a much more even playing field, especially those first couple months when it comes out. No one's going to have these stupid brutal lists because they haven't really had the opportunity to develop them yet. You know, I know they're going to come out eventually. People will have ways of playing with the system so that it works for them, but it's going to be far more even than we have right now in 7th edition, and it's far less intimidating, you know? And I think that if you come to the realization that maybe you want to give that a shot, maybe there's a part of you that's, you know, interested in seeing how you measure up against some other players, then you can hit it once 8th edition comes. So once 8th edition comes, you keep your ear to the ground with the local gaming store when they're coming out with their first tournament after it drops, and you come out with an army that you can fight with, you know? Or maybe you've just been going to tournaments every single weekend, and this is an opportunity to take a step back and go, is that really what I want to do? Do I want to run the same list every weekend against the same guys at my local tournament scene every weekend? Or do I want to keep jumping to all these other bigger tournaments around the country doing this? Is that really what makes me happy? And if it's not, then you save yourself some time. You know, maybe you just talk to your friend and you're like, why don't we just get together this weekend and have a fun game? You know, maybe we do a narrative campaign, which you're going to have the much more, you know, rules-wise supported ability to do so. You know, maybe that's what your decision is, that with 8th edition, you're like, you know what, I don't feel like trying to keep up with the Joneses and come out with the new hotness. I don't want to have to go out and buy a new army every 3 months because of the fact that that's what the meta is calling for. Maybe I just want to concentrate on this one army that's fun to play. It looks cool to me. I like building them. I like painting them. And I just want to play with my friends. You know, I just want to play with people that I enjoy playing against. And that's what you decide to do. So maybe 8th edition is the time when you turn from a tournament player to a Garage Hammer guy. You know? Or maybe you have the realization that you want to try to find some kind of happy medium between the two. You know? There's no reason you can't do that. I play a lot of really fun and fluffy games that aren't really brutal or hardcore for my channel. And I also go out to tournaments where, you know, I get my face stomped in by these giant crazy lists. And I think that there's a happy medium that you can find with there, and maybe that's what you want, you know. And this pause in the gaming right now is a good opportunity to figure out if that's what you want. You know, you have an opportunity now to kind of just reevaluate and give it a shot and see what comes of the next system. You know, because if you take the opportunity to be a little bit self-reflective, a little bit introspective, you'll know what it is that you want to try to get out of 8th edition when it finally comes out, and you can hit it hard, and you can figure it out, and you can run with it, because you're going to be in a position where you have a better understanding of why you're doing it and what you're looking for. So, you know, that's what I would suggest. So take some time to do that. Take some time to hit the hobby table, to get some paint on some plastic, so that once it finally drops, you're good to go, and you're happy to go, and you can just go out there and have a good time, you know. But that's what I would recommend. That's what I suggest doing now at this time. You know, it's a crazy time right now because you can't really do a whole lot of math hammer. You can't do a whole lot of list building, but you can do prep. And I think that prep is going to leave you better able that once the rules finally drop to hit the ground running. So you can hit the ground running and figuring out what the meta is going to be. You can hit the ground running and figure out how to make the army that you've chosen to play work. And you can hit the ground and just be able to make 8th edition what you want 8th edition to be. And I think that's what 8th edition's strongest suit is going to be, is that it's the ability to turn it into whatever it is that you personally want it to be. So that's what I would suggest going out there. And I suggest if you decide that you do want to try a new army, I would suggest building it in smaller pieces so you can play it in games like Kill Team or in Shadow Wars, in ways that aren't necessarily going to change drastically once 8th edition hits. You can go out there and still play them once it hits, but it gives you a goal, an aim that you can build it for, you know? So if you decide that you want to build it up Kill Team style, that Force Org is going to stay the same, you know? You're still going to have the 0 to 2 troops, 0 to 1 fast attack, 0 to 1 heavy support, 0 to 1 elite that you can build, and that's going to stay the same when 8th edition drops. You know, how they play is going to be different, and it'd probably take a little bit of tweaking with the specialties, but it's still going to stay the same. So even when 8th edition drops, if you want to play Kill Team with 8th edition, that Force Org is going to be the same. So you can build a team towards that Force Org, and that's not going to change. You know, if you do Shadow Wars, it gives you the opportunity to just build and paint one squad. It gives you one squad that you can work with. So you buy the one troop choice, and you can build up a team and be able to play Shadow Wars, because that's not going to change at all once 8th edition drops. But it gives you an opportunity to go out and buy a new army, try out how you like building it, because maybe you think that you want to do Skitarii, but once you buy that first box and you build it, you're like, all these little fiddly bits are not for me. This is not fun. This is not what I like to do. Building and painting this it doesn't entertain me. So that you didn't have to go out and waste a whole bunch of money on a new army, you can build that one box worth and move on, you know? And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, but you can go out and at least give it a shot. And there's no, you know, at the end of the day, you spent one box worth on a unit that you don't actually get to use. And that's not a big commitment to figuring out what's going to make you happy. So those are my suggestions of what to do here with 8th edition dropping sooner than later, and not being stuck there twiddling your thumbs, not knowing what to do. I think that if you sit there and just brood over the fact that we don't know all of the rules yet, you're going to go crazy. And I think I could see myself going crazy when I'm sitting there. When I wake up in the morning, because I live in, living in Alaska, by the time I wake up in the morning, the new article has come out. So I always wake up and I look at the new article. And if all I was doing was waking up, looking for the new article, reading that new article, and then just trolling the comments, I would go crazy. If I wasn't doing things productive, if I wasn't doing things to move forward, like I am building up my Death Watch stuff like I am right now, going out and still playing games of 7th edition, if I wasn't doing any of that, I would be going crazy, and I would become very upset. And understandably so, if that's what if this thing that had been an important part of my life was suddenly taken from me, I would be very upset. And I think that if you let yourself do that to yourself, you're also going to be upset. So if you're just going through this and you're keeping up on the news of what's coming out, but you're still going forward and still moving forward and progressing with hobby tasks, with gaming for fun with your friends, then I think you're going to be less anxious about 8th edition dropping. I think you're going to be less upset about 8th edition dropping, and I think you're going to be less worried about 8th edition dropping, because once it does drop, you've kept up on what's going on, you've got a fresh group of models or whatever it is that you can get to play with, and you can move forward with it however it's going to be coming. So that's my suggestion, is just keep moving forward and take an opportunity to have some self-reflection so that you move forward in a productive manner, especially once the 8th edition rules drop. Because, you know, right now you may think that you've been playing in tournaments, like I said, every weekend for as long as you can remember, and that's just the way it's been. Well, now's an opportunity to take a step back and go, is that the way I want it to be? Do I want to keep going that direction? Do I want to try to change something? Am I really happy doing that? You know, this is the perfect opportunity to do that, because the rules are going to change, and if you want to keep going that way, you're going to have to learn to do it differently. So maybe this is an opportunity to go, does that really make me happy, or is that just the way I've been doing it? And if it's not making you happy, then don't do it. Because if you force yourself to do a certain thing in this hobby and it's not what you want to do, it's going to drain you. It's going to drain you physically, it's going to drain you mentally, it's going to drain you fiscally. And that's not the point of this hobby. That's not the point of this thing that we do. This thing is supposed to make us happy, however it is that we want to do it. And this is a perfect opportunity to figure out if you're really doing it the way that's going to make you happy. And that way, once 8th edition finally comes out, you can approach it that way. So you can approach it and go, you know what, I really just want to do more narrative fun stuff. So you're going to concentrate maybe on the open play or the narrative play, or you're going to look at the points values that they have, like the looser, less granular point system that they have, and that's going to be your emphasis. Or maybe you decide that, no, you know what, I want to make 8th edition the time when I really hit it hard, and I want to try, and I want to go out to tournaments, I want to try to hit the scene. Maybe this is the time that you decide that this is going to be your first time that you want to go to a big tournament, like an LVO, or planning for Adepticon, or go to the Nova Open that's going to be coming out, because I imagine Nova Open is going to be the first big tournament with 8th edition rules. So this gives you the opportunity to go, this is what I'm going to do now with 8th edition, so that once it drops, you start looking at how the different command points work. You start looking at how the different force org work. You start looking at those more granular point systems that are going to be in tournament play, you know, match play. And that's what your emphasis becomes, so that you don't hit it without knowing what it is that you're looking for 8th edition to be for you. Because 8th edition, I think, can be whatever you want it to be, but if you're not looking at it in the way that, if you're not looking for it to be a certain way, then it's not going to, you're not going to know how to approach it. So that's my suggestion. Just take some time to go forward and understand who you are as a gamer, understand who you are as a hobbyist, and explore what it is that this hobby does, because it's very easy to have just been doing the same army for as long as you've been doing it, because that's just the way you've been doing it, and without any consideration for what it is that you want it to be. So that's my suggestions for what to do in this break period that we've got now between the drop of the release that, or the notice that they're coming out with 8th edition, and when they finally release it. Got some good hobbying done, so I can show you guys kind of what's going on with them now. Like I said, it's a pretty heavy dry brush, but it looks kind of gray right now because that's the first batch of Null and Oil. I may have gone a little too hard with this, but what I can do is I can just throw another coat of Null and Oil onto it, and at that point I can just put another coat of Null and Oil on it. Usually what I do at this point is I have it, I guess that died on me. Oh, it's sort of dying on me. Who knows? Yep, I think it's dead. Alright, so you can't actually see it anymore on that. That's pretty good timing. But what I'll do is I'll block in the other colors, and I'll do another coat of Null and Oil at minimum. I might throw another coat of Null and Oil before I put in block in those colors, but that's what I've got with those guys. So that's the hobby aspect that I think I did pretty good productivity on this video, and I hope that the information that I shared there, discussion that we've had here, was helpful. So let me know what you guys plan on doing in the time between now and when 8th edition drops, or if you actually happen to be watching this after 8th edition drops, maybe you're going to look back and be like, you're you're crazy for thinking any of that. But let me know what you think what you think you want to be doing between now, or what it is that you are doing, or maybe let me know if you think that this conversation has helped you change your idea of what it is that you want to be doing between now and then. And let's have a discussion, because we've had some pretty good discussions in the comment section about what I've talked about in these videos. So I enjoy that. I like having these talks. I enjoy the back and forth that we get. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys want, and keep it going. So just drop a comment down below and let me know. Or if you just want to say, you're doing a great job. I love getting those. I know you may see other people do it, but I really do legitimately feel good when I see those comments saying you're doing a great job and I love your videos, and I subscribe to watch what's coming out, because I just passed 4,000 subscribers, and it's blowing my mind that many of you really want to know when my next video comes out, that you want to get a notification, or that you want to have it on your feed when you open up YouTube to see that those videos came out. And that's pretty impressive. It's kind of, it's pretty special. I really have enjoyed what's going on. So let me know, if I'm doing a good job, or if you want to see me do something differently. I take constructive criticism very well, and as long as you're not a jerk about it, I'm totally happy to hear what it is that you think that I could be doing better. And maybe I'll tell you that I can't do it any better. I'm trying. As you can see, tried this with the GoPro. I might have to make sure my battery's charged. I think that may have been what happened. It may have died that way. But I think I got enough of it there that you guys can see. I'm thinking of maybe I'll put it just kind of like down here in this corner, or up here in this corner. Actually, up here in this corner might be a better idea, so that you guys can see what I was working on. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this topic, or any topic, and keep it up, because you guys are pretty awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did. I have been Phil, as always, and until next time, have fun.